Support from the Meeple Minded comes from listeners like you. The next time you're looking for that new geek-tastic purchase, why not support us by using our affiliate link, where we get a small percentage of the total at no extra cost to you. Go to thecomicshop.co.uk/MeepleMinded. Thank you for your support. What is up, guys, and welcome to the Meeple Minded podcast, the podcast where we talk all things tabletop gaming. My name is Jason.
And I'm James.
How are you doing this week, James?
Yeah, good.
Yeah, things are getting better.
Yeah, they are.
It's not as hot. We've been gaming. It's a good week. It's been a good week.
It has.
We've actually been gaming. We got some good games in this week.
We did get some good games in this.
Can you remember what we've been playing?
Project L.
How much do you like that game?
I really like that game, Jason.
I think that game is another one of those games. It's a bit too good for what it deserves to be.
Yeah.
Because it is essentially, I guess, a play on Tetris, isn't it?
Pretty much, yeah.
Another very good value game as well. I now have that in my collection, which is why we've been playing it. Because before that, we were using Paul's copy, and he kept stealing it and taking it back to the shed. So I thought, oh, sorry, I better get my own in the end.
How dare he steal back his own games?
I know. It's not good, is it?
It's the peas, Jason.
It's the
because
peas.
Not only have we been playing, we've been playing the projects, because the other game we've been playing is Project Elite.
We have indeed been playing Project Elite, and of course we are now playing the Cool Mini or Not version, because that is my main version now. I've actually got rid of the original Artipia Games version. I finished painting the Cool Mini or Not version, and we finally have got it to the table. And I think, if I'm not wrong in saying, that was probably the easiest game we've ever played of Project Elite.
Yeah, we actually did that relatively quickly, but the mission was really easy.
It was. And we played it on medium difficulty. So I think deep down, although we had 2 new players, we probably should have gone for the harder mode, because even I didn't realise how easy that exploration mission was going to be. So next time we're going hard.
Yep.
But anyway, they're not the games that we are here to talk about today. We're not even going to be talking about a specific game today, James. We're going to do a topical.
Oh, a topical.
We are indeed. And I'm not going to break out what that is, because before we do that, I want to bring in like a little new segment into this show, which I haven't pre-warned you about at all, have I?
No, not at all. What are we doing? What's going on?
So what we're going to do now is, I thought, seeing as though we've been running for so long and we have quite a backlog of episodes, it would be nice that we sort of maybe not celebrate, but a year after we review a game, we just revisit it for a few minutes before we go into the episode and see if our thoughts have changed on the game. Have we played it again? And would we continue playing it? What do you think of that idea?
Terrified. I can't even remember what we did last year.
Well, you're lucky, James, because I keep on top of that kind of stuff, because just over a year ago is when you joined us.
Has it been that long?
It has. It was July, I think it was 13th, something like that. Yeah, we did do Meeple Land, but we have missed that one. So what we're actually going to discuss today, what we played exactly a year ago, was Inesh.
Ooh.
So, James, do you remember Inesh? Have you played it again since?
No. Why haven't I played it again since, Jason?
I'm going to guess that I have to make this admittance, don't I?
This
is
do.
a terrible one for me to pick to do as a start one.
You do.
The reason we haven't played Inesh again is because I loved that game so much that I decided it was a good idea to dedicate my time to painting the miniatures. So I sprayed up all the miniatures and then promptly didn't paint the miniatures.
Yep.
So currently all of the miniatures for every team are grey.
Yep. Which makes playing the game a little bit difficult.
It does indeed, if not impossible.
Yep.
Without having to keep lifting the miniatures up to look what colour it is underneath. So that would be the reason we haven't played Inesh. But if that wasn't the case, James, do you think we would have played it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that game. Because I love retreating to the mountain forest, holding a festival, and not inviting you.
This is very, very true. The game is great fun. I think, if I'm honest, I'm less likely to paint the miniatures now because of that tiny little sort of 10mm scale soldiers.
I said to you, I didn't say to you at the time because they weren't out, but I was just thinking about it. Is the miniatures are such a small scale. Just dip them in contrast and be done with it.
Well, yeah.
Dip.
I think ultimately that's either what I'm going to do, or they're going to end up going through the sort of paint stripping process. Or hell, I might even just 3D print some 32mm scale ones when I've just a nice big wargame. That sounds terrifying.
It might happen. I mean, there's not a massive amount of miniatures per faction.
Now that the expansion for that has come back into print, I think I want to acquire that, and that will of course mean that might prompt me to get those miniatures stripped or at least painted. So fingers crossed, we might get that to the table again soon. But as it stands, I think my mindset is still the same. Inish is a great game.
Yes.
That's all for that. Should we dive into what our topic is going to be this week?
Let's do it.
I've got a question for you.
Okay.
So the question for you, James, is do you think this hobby is embarrassing?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. It's interesting because I don't really feel like it's embarrassing either. However, very recently, I was involved in a discussion with a few people, and one of them just happened to mention and admit that other than the people in the game group that we were in, they don't really talk about the hobby outside of that. They don't tell people about it or anything like that. And, you know, after being quizzed a little bit further, because none of us really understood what he was getting at, it basically boiled down to the fact that he was embarrassed by his own source of entertainment. I'm one of those people. I don't think I've ever really been affected by what other people think of me or anything that I do. Yeah. However, it took me a little while to really grasp what there is to really be embarrassed about the game. So it can't just be the one person. I'm guessing there's quite a few people that feel this way.
I think it all boils down, Jason, to that old-fashioned view of geeks and nerds. Basically, it's like, that's what you people are embarrassed about having that label, and it's just sort of, it's never really bothered me. And when you think about sort of everything that's around at the moment, like Marvel rules the cinema, all that kind of stuff, it's like over the years, geek stuff has become more mainstream, therefore a lot more noticeable, but it still has that kind of stigma and stereotype attached to it. I wouldn't necessarily say that I speak about what we do with people outside of the game group, but it's not because I'm embarrassed about it. It's because 9 times out of 10 other people won't have a clue what I'm talking about. That
I can semi understand. If you're not going to talk to someone, if you know that they're not into the hobby, then why would you kind of really instigate a gaming themed discussion with those people? But even in this day and age, it's so embarrassing to admit that to actually, air quotes, fit in, you've got to like football, you've got to like all of the latest, biggest budget Hollywood movie films, you've got to like Katy Perry and all the other generic things that the man on the telly box tells us we have to like. It's 2022. It shouldn't be that way.
I like what I like, I've already touched on it saying, sort of, I don't talk to people outside the gaming group about the hobbies. And, you sort of said the same thing, but to upgrade that to being embarrassed about it, it's like you've got your Kallax with all your games behind you. That would be like you taking that down and hiding it if someone else from outside the game group come on, they can't see that I like board games. I mean, that's you kind of see stuff like that. I'd imagine it'd be something like if you ever saw the film, was it Matilda, where they're in the classroom and then Miss Trunchbull's coming in and they have to cover everything over with like really old school mathematics boards because she doesn't like colour and that kind of thing. It's like, do you know what? I might get some nice curtains on this Kallax. Why have you got curtains on that Kallax? It's aesthetic, really. It really does make you wonder because, and I really did sit and think about this because I think back to 6 years ago before we formed the Crawley Gaming Club. Okay. And I had very, very, I had lots of friends, but very, very few of them were involved in the hobby. So I didn't really talk about it with that many people. Obviously, I talked about it with yourself because I knew you were into, Warhammer and stuff like that. But I didn't really talk to many other friends. Years down the line, I find out that actually the number percentage-wise of my friends that were actually into the hobby all that time is closer to 80%. Than I was thinking at maybe 5%.
And none of us now know why we didn't talk to each other about it. And I do sit down and ask myself, is it because I was, subconsciously too embarrassed to really announce what my hobbies were?
The Warhammer one's a classic example of that. It's like, I can remember when people who are not into it, have shown an interest because, they've come round to my house and either seen some miniatures or a book or something. Oh, what's that then? And you start to explain it to them. And within 2 minutes, if they're not interested, the
glazed donut eyes
have glazed over. And it's just sort of like, if they're not into it, it's like, it's a game.
Yeah.
And move on. Because it's like, no, you're not into it. You're not going to be into it. And if I try and explain it to you, you're going to glaze over within 2 minutes.
I mean, would you say that maybe we'll just focus on tabletop gaming because this is another subject that affects lots of different hobbies, but we'll focus on tabletop gaming. Would you say that even within tabletop gaming, war games, role-play games, card games, board games, they've all got their differences as to what level you would start to get the embarrassment at? Because I would find with me, just using your example there of like trying to explain it, I would find it harder to engage with someone over wargaming than I would with board games. Because there's far more variety within the board game sphere that I could maybe hunt around for to actually find a hook.
Yeah.
To actually, okay, well, we can talk about that. Oh, you like Marvel? Cool, right, we'll talk about Marvel board games. Or, oh, you like birds? Cool, let's talk about Wingspan. Oh, you like card building mechanics? Okay, cool. Oh, I played card games when I was young. I was like, oh, cool, because those card games are still going, but there's also these board games which work in a similar way. I would find that a bit easier. Would you say that it's harder for something like war games or role-play games?
Well, the problem with war games and role-play games is you just tend to default to the big boys, don't you? It's like, you're into role-play, you must be a D&D player. Despite the fact that there's hundreds of systems out there. It's the same with tabletop war games. It's like there are lots of different games, but the minute someone goes, oh yeah, I like tabletop war games. Oh, Warhammer player.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's the one that everyone knows, isn't it, really?
And it is, maybe some of the reason as well that people feel embarrassed is if they've been in the hobby for a long time. Like you and I are both old enough to remember as kids when we were genuinely bullied for liking this stuff.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So, and that kind of stuff makes me laugh now. It's like I said earlier, it's like Marvel and Star Wars rule the cinema. It's like when I was at school, if you admitted to liking comic books or you were a Star Wars nerd, you were. Yes,
you had to hide away and try and avoid being, having your head shoved down the toilet was a favourite in the UK, wasn't it? The old bogwash.
Yeah, and it's quite amusing now that I see the people who used to do that, posting Star Wars memes on the internet.
I actually was talking about this subject with one of our game club members just yesterday, before game night, and I've got to hold my hands up and say thank you to Alex for this one because it's one of the best quotes I think I could pull from this, because we were talking about geeks, nerds, and this new one that I'd not even heard of, which was Neeks, nerd geeks.
Yeah.
Because whatever. And his example was, we may well be that, but there is a big difference between I'd like a burger and fries and would you like fries with the burger? I'm ordering the burger, you're selling me the burger. It's that stereotype of gamers, nerds, geeks, neeks, whatever. They are the ones that go on to get the better jobs, supposedly.
Yeah.
I'd like to find out where my better job is, but, splitting hairs here. I really liked that. It made me laugh when he said it, because it's actually, that is stereotypically true.
Yep.
As much as I don't like stereotypes, that is stereotypically true, which is very funny. But yeah, I really did think, what is it exactly that people are embarrassed about with regards to the game? Is it that it's viewed as childish? Do you think it's because it's viewed as childish?
There is some of that. Like I said, I've already touched on this sort of, a lot of us will remember a time where we were bullied for liking things like this. And because hobbies are very subjective, it's sort of like, I like it, somebody else might not. And it's sort of like, especially here in the UK where banter's a thing as well. It's just sort of like, we like to rib each other for things. And it's sort of like, a friend of mine plays golf. And, I constantly wind him up by saying, oh, you have to hit things with your golf bats.
Yeah, exactly.
And it winds him up to no end. It's like golf clubs.
Yeah.
And I will call them bats just to wind them up.
Yeah, I mean, this. I actually put this question to the community on Facebook as well, and that was one of the examples. Was again, it was a rib between friends, so it wasn't a malice thing. But they would take the mickey out of the board game side of things, and then they'd immediately turn and say, "Well, what's so different about me liking these and you going into the woods and hitting a small ball with a stick?"
Yeah,
At which point, fair enough. There's, as you said, there's ridicule in everything.
There's ridicule, but in the comparison, it's like, hobbies are subjective, and it's like, I've heard that, when I was a war gamer, it's like, but you spend hundreds, of pounds on plastic models. It's like, mate, you spend thousands of pounds on one golf club, tailor-made for you. Because you like the hobby. To you, that club has value. To me, who's not a golfer, I look at it and go, what a waste of money.
Yeah. Whereas your little plastic toy soldiers have lots of value.
Yeah.
So, it's all subjective, I think.
To me, they do.
Yeah.
To someone who's not into it, I can fully understand why they look at it and go, why are you paying hundreds of pounds for little plastic models?
Yeah.
Because I want to pay hundreds of pounds for little plastic models.
I mean... ultimately, everything we say in this is going to be a case of it's your hobby. Do as you so please. But for me, you should never be embarrassed by your own hobbies. I mean, yes, board gaming especially is viewed as old-fashioned. Yes, there is of course the fear of ridicule because people that are uninitiated or uninterested within our hobby won't understand, and they will look at the stereotypes.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Is that you can hone in on board gaming for this. It's like, to someone who's not into board gaming, and admittedly, I was the same when you tried to drag me into board gaming, the board gaming world.
Yeah, as was I.
The minute you say board games, where does to the uninitiated,
default,
where does your mind go? You default. Oh, no thanks. I'm not in the mood to play Monopoly.
Yeah, exactly. The stereotyping games that we all know, Monopoly, Cluedo, all that kind of jazz.
Yep.
I mean, for me, that's another reason. Like, occasionally, I could be in a situation where someone might ask me what my hobbies are, but I will not tell them. And it's not through embarrassment. So this is where I draw the definition. The reason I wouldn't tell them is not for embarrassment. It's actually because I can't really be bothered to have that long discussion of, no, it's not Monopoly, it's not like Monopoly, and then have to go into why it's not all of those things. When, like you say, after about 3 minutes of me explaining as to why it's not Monopoly, the glazed over is there, and I just feel like I'm talking to a Krispy Kreme donut.
Yeah.
It's that has happened with me, and I'm the first to hold my hands up and say that, which, I mean, me, I talk about games all the time.
Yep.
It's pretty much all I know.
The thing is, I've learned as well now, when it comes to board gaming or war gaming, it's sort of like, if someone asks me what's that, it's like, pull up a chair, we'll play a game. If I try and explain it to you, you're going to glaze over in 2 minutes. It's like, you want to know what this is?
Yeah, here's a seat, sit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the best way to be, I think, to be honest. But obviously that kind of requires you to have the game there and all of that. But yeah.
If someone's going to ask about it, normally they've either seen it on the shelf or they've seen, like in my case, they've seen the models, and it's just sort of like, we'll have a quick game. I'll run you through it, the basics.
Yeah, exactly. That's perfect. Now, this was one that actually popped up online that, again, I hadn't thought about. And I'd like to discuss it just a little bit. This one actually stems from the embarrassment that can come from within the hobby. And it basically the embarrassment of not wanting to be assimilated to the toxic minority that is within our community. There are those people in every community where, we're not oblivious to that. We are fully aware that exists. Is that a good reason to be embarrassed by your hobby?
There is that aspect of it as well, isn't there? Like you said, within the, that's not just the board game and gaming community. There's the wider geek and nerd culture, if you like. There is, like you said, that very small, but very loud minority. That would be, for me, that would be a reason. It's like, I do not want people to think that I am like them.
Yeah, so, for me, I'm embarrassed about that.
Yeah.
As I'm guessing most gamers are, as we said, we're talking, no more than a 5% minority within the hobby. I'd like to say it's that low anyway, but it is a minority. So the majority of people, I'm guessing, will be embarrassed about that. You know, even if they don't think about it necessarily when we say, oh, are you embarrassed by your hobby? No, of course I'm not. Well, are you embarrassed by this? Well, yes, I am. Well, then technically, you are indeed embarrassed by your hobby.
No, I would disagree with that. As like, I'm embarrassed by that particular person. I'm not embarrassed by playing the board games. But yeah, I do not want to be associated that kind of person.
This is not a representation of the hobby. Let's put it that way. So there's that one. As I've said, the common one, you know, we got hundreds of comments on this, which were the common one was fear of ridicule seems to be the overall. Yeah. I'm embarrassed to admit it because I don't want to deal with the whole, oh, you child, or, you know, those kind of things. And the worst thing is I struggle to sort of say what I would do in that situation because obviously everyone is different. You know, for me, I'm quite an outspoken person. If somebody wants to come at me, I will happily give it back.
Yeah, I'm an outspoken person like you. Like you said, if someone wants to come at me, I'll give it back. I've also got quite a thick skin and can tell the difference between someone, like you said, you know, this might be a UK specific thing, but yeah, I can tell when someone's having a bit of banter or when someone's being serious.
Yeah. To further this, I actually asked my partner, who obviously wasn't involved in tabletop gaming originally, and after a few years of being with me, slowly got into it and is now quite heavily into it. And I asked her exactly that question. Have you or anyone you know ever been embarrassed by this hobby? And I'm going to read out what she actually put. And I'm sure she won't mind me doing this because I did say it was for a podcast. So initially, I was embarrassed for a number of reasons. As an adult, it may look childish to others, and it plays a big part in people's lives like mine who have extremely low self-esteem, which she does. People like me and the whole stigma around being seen as nerdy or geeky makes some people uncomfortable of showing who they really are and what they enjoy. I've felt this for a long time as a result. Now that I've been playing games for a fair amount of time, I don't feel quite that bad anymore. However, certain types of games in a public environment do occasionally make her feel embarrassed or uncomfortable in certain situations. So obviously that's not something she's completely got over. But ultimately, what do you make of that statement?
Yeah, I can see where she's coming from.
It's tough, isn't it? Because I think back to some of the games that I've got on the shelf behind me. For example, we'll take Nickelodeon Splat Attack as an example. It's cartoon characters playing a food fight game. If we were to take that to the comic shop, would I feel embarrassed about playing it? No, I wouldn't. But would that be perceived as maybe a childish game by someone who's not seen it before or doesn't know of the game? You know, how do you sort of... It's really hard to try and word it, but how do you get over that sort of hurdle of, do I really want to play this childish-looking game in public? Do I just keep it behind closed doors sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, the comic shop, like you said, and places like it would be a little bit different, I suppose, because it is a comic and board game shop so I would be hard-pressed to find someone in there who would actually have that attitude. They're more likely to go, oh, cool, Rugrats.
Yeah, I would agree on that.
I when you say public places like taking it to
the pub.
Yeah, the pub.
Cafes and stuff like that.
That kind of place. Yeah, I might be a bit more like, let's not play the childish cartoon game. Ultimately, you shouldn't have to think about like that kind of thing. It's a game. You should just be able to enjoy it. But there are narrow-minded people around.
Yeah.
Or people who just get their kicks by embarrassing other people. And, you know, it's like, I'm not embarrassed by the game. I despise being the center of attention. So, like I said, if one of these narrow-minded people, oh, look, they're playing a childish game in a public place, and like everyone turn, you know, that's my idea of a horrible nightmare. It's like, oh great.
See, now that I can definitely understand, and I guess that is, if boiled down to its core, there is ultimately a form of embarrassment within that that has emanated from the game that you've chosen to play. So, you know, ultimately, I just want to get it out there through this episode to say, especially to those people that do struggle with this whole embarrassment thing within the hobby, is like, as much as I want to say don't be embarrassed, it's okay to be embarrassed by certain things. Yeah, it's your hobby. You know, this is what you get enjoyment from. You should never be embarrassed about what you get enjoyment from. However, I think the best way that I can suggest to try and combat this is probably what you're already doing, getting involved in game groups that are all there for the same thing.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, once you get your confidence up through being with that group, then you're going to start being okay. We've been doing this for years now, James.
Yeah.
And we've now got this attitude of, I don't care. You know, we've been geeks and nerds for years. So I don't care what other people think. And as you said, it's becoming more socially acceptable.
It's weird. So just thinking about it, it's like, you know, the example we just gave, there are games on your shelf like Splat Attack you listed, Wacky Races being another one, where it was like, it might make me feel embarrassed to play those in a non-traditional gaming environment, but a public place. But then again, there are games like Operation Flashpoint, Pandemic, Ankh, Scythe, the more traditionally adult games, whereas, you know, in under the same situation, they play a board game. And so, yeah, I think it would be the potential theme and how other people are looking at it that would make me feel embarrassed, not the actual board game itself.
Yeah.
So it's an odd one, that.
Yeah. As hard as it is, would you ever have any kind of recommendation for anyone who maybe does feel a little bit embarrassed about being involved in the tabletop gaming hobby? You know, any specific places you would say that they could go to try and help with that?
I would echo what you just said, which is find either a friendly local gaming store or a gaming club in your local area, because all of the people who are in those kind of places are there for the same reason you are.
Yeah, and the likelihood is they've also been through this at some point in their life.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, if you're sort of our age, we went through this at school because we were Pokemon fans. You know, that was the big thing back then. But, you know, if you liked that, you were still a geek or a nerd. But yeah, I just sort of enjoy the games for what they are. Try not to be too embarrassed about playing that as a, you know, doing that as a hobby. Maybe try and find avenues of how you can talk to people. You know, if it's going to be a case of, no, it's not Monopoly, then, you know, try and figure out a way that isn't so tedious to trying to explain it.
Yeah.
But
it's funny you mentioning Pokemon and Pokemon cards, actually, because that is probably the first example that I can actually think of the geek sphere breaching into mainstream.
Yeah.
Because everyone, bar none, was into Pokemon cards. Even if it was just trading them, not playing the actual game, just trading Pokemon cards. Everyone at my school went nuts for them, and the cartoon as well. Yeah. It was just that's the first example I can remember of something from the geek sphere breaking into the mainstream. Yeah. Probably the start of it, actually. Yeah.
I mean, it'd be interesting to actually look back and see where, you know, where the roots of where we currently are and where it all started. And
I mean, it would have started like I said, you know, we said, you know, you used to get bullied for liking Marvel and Star Wars and things like that. Secretly, I think a lot more people who would have, even the ones doing the bullying, were into it. They just didn't admit it. Yeah. It's a huge franchise and has been for a very long time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's something you could, I would suggest as well, is just know that deep down, they either just don't know, they don't care, or they are actually fans themselves and are just so narrow-minded that they're put up a front. My ultimate thing is try your best to be as confident as you can in your hobby. Enjoy your hobby, because at the end of the day, you've got a hobby. Maybe they don't. Maybe they go to work every day, come home and go to bed, go to work, come home, go to bed. It's no life. We all enjoy our hobby. Yeah. We are the ones that are enjoying our lives because of our hobby. Yeah. So yeah, that's all I can really say. I'm fully supportive of anyone who is feeling that they might be embarrassed about their hobby, and I only wish I could help more people, but ultimately my help is being here, talking about it, being here to support game club organisers as to how they can get themselves out there to try and help these, you know, people find new groups of friends that they can talk about these things with. So that's what we're here for. You can find us basically anywhere on social media. We're always open to some messages, and if we can help, we will. Anything else you want to say on the subject, James?
No, I think we've covered all the bases here, Jason.
Yeah, I think we have. Again, it's another fairly short-ish episode, I guess. It was a discussion I wanted to have because I don't feel that anyone should be embarrassed in their hobby, but I totally understand
why.
Why? Because there is, unfortunately, still narrow-minded people and ridicule in this world, and until that's gone,
Yeah.
There will always be, embarrassment about whatever we do within our lives, be it our job, our families, our homes. There was even an advert on TV during the pandemic. Do you remember it? Where they were doing I think it was Wix in the UK, where they were advertising new kitchens so that when you're on a Zoom call with your work, they can't see your embarrassing kitchen behind you. I was kind of disgusted, to be honest, by that advert when I saw it, but it's obviously a thing. They're capitalizing on something that they know exists.
Yeah.
So
people have to succumb to what other people think. It's sort of my kitchen's a bit run down. Oh well.
Yeah. Exactly. Especially if you're on a work call. It's like, well, pay me more and I'll get it fixed.
Yeah.
There you go. Making light of the situation there. That's all I can suggest anyone does. But short of that, do exactly what we are about to do. And let's go and play some games.
Indeed.
But of course, before we do that, we will hand over to the man in the new shed, who will tell me how to spend more of my money on my embarrassing hobby. And we will see you in a second.
Well, it's a bit of a weird one this week, old chap. Well, you see, I started writing the first news story of the week and just say I got a bit carried away. And I don't even play the game. Yeah, well, I hope some of our listeners do, otherwise I'm a bit off-piece this week. Yeah, well, it's all Magic the Gathering this week, all of it. Well, I watch games being played, but never played it myself. Maybe we should get a couple of decks and have a go. Yeah, we'll realise the main story was so long that I couldn't fit the others in. We've still got some Kickstarters, even one that's not going to break the bank or incur any postage. Well, you'll just have to wait and see, won't you? Well, on that note, you know what to do. Give that button a bump, will you? Well, Wizards of the Coast took to YouTube just a few days ago to announce what's to come for the rest of 2022 and into 2023, with some fan favourites making a return, as well as some unusual additions to the many facets that both Magic the Gathering and Dungeons & Dragons have spread to. First up to Magic the Gathering is the return to Dominaria United in late 2022. Dominaria United and its subsequent releases will form a story arc that will see players experience a battle between the forces of Pyrexia and Dominaria. Kicker returns, bringing back the fan favourite mechanic, allowing cast creatures to be given additional effects or buffed based on additional mana being used. The domain mechanic also makes a welcome return, which will power up cards dependent on which lands are in the player's control. The sagas mechanic gets a slight tweak with a read ahead ability, allowing players to jump ahead in the story and gain the powerful resolution earlier than they may have planned. What is new is the enlist mechanic, an ability used during combat that allows a creature to enlist another by tapping it. Though this means the targeted creature can't be attacking as well, enlisted creatures add their power to the attacker's might without putting themselves in the thick of danger, allowing the small fries and precious but weak mana dorks to still contribute to the combat phase. Dominaria United will be joined shortly after by the Brothers' War in late 2022. Early 2023 will see the release of Pyrexia, All Will Be One. Pyrexia is one of the many planes found in the world of Magic the Gathering, and is primarily characterised by its population of artificial creatures, who are seemingly able to evolve into greater and more terrible beings. The story arc will complete in spring 2023 with March of the Machine, followed by March of the Machine The Aftermath, which will explore the fundamental changes that have taken place in Magic's multiverse, as well as conclude the storyline surrounding Pyrexia. Later on in 2023, players will be able to return once again to the plane of Eldraine with the Wilds of Eldraine set. First introduced in 2019 with the Throne of Eldraine set, the plane is known for its classic medieval fantasy and fairy tale elements, as well as the lands of the wilds. Throne of Eldraine featured several new gameplay mechanics, including Magic the Gathering's keyword, Adamant, which would see additional or alternative effects occur if the player casts a spell using 3 or more mana of one colour. And finally, in Q4 2023, this will see the release of Lost Caverns of Ixalan, a core set that will see the clash of 3 major factions: pirates, dinosaurs and vampires. As well as the mainstays you expect from Wizards' announcement, they are delving into a couple of crossovers to join the likes of The Walking Dead, Godzilla and Street Fighter. One of the new sets in particular takes a slightly sci-fi direction as we cross over into the world of Doctor Who. Yep, set to coincide with the Doctor Who's 60th anniversary of when the very first Doctor Who episode, starring William Hartnell as the first Doctor, was broadcast on November 23rd, 1963. It was confirmed that the Doctor Who set will span the entire 60-year history of Doctor Who, featuring all the Doctors, their companions and villains. Among the first bits of artwork teased were Tom Baker's 4th Doctor, Matt Smith's 11th Doctor, and Joe Martin's Fugitive Doctor, along with illustrations of the Time Lord home planet Gallifrey and indeed the TARDIS. This set will also include Ncuti Gatwa, the sex education star who is taking up the role as the 14th Doctor after Jodie Whittaker, and is still yet to make his public appearance on screen as filming has not started yet. Although Wizards did tease that the Doctor Who Magic the Gathering cards would feature content that is not yet public, including elements from the forthcoming season. The Doctor Who Magic the Gathering set will see the release of 4 Commander decks alongside collector boosters, the game's pricier packs containing rares, foils, frames, alternate artwork and other visual variants. And if that wasn't enough, more news came of the upcoming Lord of the Rings set, Tales from Middle-earth, set to join the likes of the Universes Beyond sets alongside Warhammer 40,000 and Fortnite. As you'd expect from a Lord of the Rings Magic the Gathering set, Tales from Middle-earth will feature familiar faces from Tolkien's books, including Fellowship of the Ring members such as Frodo and Gandalf, as well as the Moria-dwelling Balrog, Durin's Bane, shown pitted in combat with Gandalf the Grey. Newly revealed during Wizards Presents are borderless scene cards, which can be arranged to form panoramic scenes from across the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy. The first scene to be revealed was Battle of Pelennor Fields, Return of the King's climactic siege of Minas Tirith, made up of 18 individual cards arranged in 3 rows. Each row of 6 cards forms a standalone scene, from the Witch King of Angmar and Nazgul riding Felbeasts in the air to a mounted clash between cavalry and what appears to be members of the Fellowship, including Legolas, Gimli and Aragorn. Confirmation was also made that the Lord of the Rings Tales from Middle-earth would release on digital app MTG Arena as an alchemy set, the digital app's spin-off from the tabletop standard format that features new mechanics and rebalanced cards. The digital set will be accompanied by virtual gubbins such as a new battlefield, player avatars, pets and mastery pass, after previously being announced that Tales of Middle-earth would be complete modern legal set on the tabletop too, allowing it to be played in official tournaments and booster packs to be used in the game's draft format. Whew, wow, we got over that then. Right, we're heading straight to crowdfunding now, and the first up on this week is a Bako Dig and Write by RAWR Games. It's for 1 to 100 players, takes 15 minutes to 30 minutes to play, is for ages 10 years and over, and ends on Tuesday, September the 6th. The ruins of an unknown civilization have been discovered, and archaeologists from all over the world begin their work to unearth all the treasures and stories that the island of Bako has hidden. In this roll and write game, you will take the role of the prestigious archaeologists Kai and Koro. During each round, ruled by the result of the dice, all players at the same time will draw fences all over their enclosure to try to complete the figures that the cards determine, and thus unearth the different fossils, treasures and ruins that are hidden. The bigger the discoveries, the more points you earn, but the greater the risk, because the other archaeologists can ruin your strategy by placing a hole. After 15 rounds, the player who has achieved the most points for his discoveries wins the game. Just £5 gets you access to the print and play files, including all unlocked stretch goals as well as any future updates. Plus, you get access to their previous Kickstarter, Kaikoro Roller Right. And that's the only pledge level. See? Told you, think that's the cheapest Kickstarter we've ever done, and no postage. I know! And next up on Kickstarter is the Necrohamster by Jackdaw Company. It's for 2 to 4 players. It takes 5 to 15 minutes to complete. For ages 7 years and over, ends on Friday, September the 16th. The Necrohamster is a card game for 2 to 4 players. Players take simultaneous turns in which they summon skeletons, zombies and spirits. The winner is the player who has amassed the greatest horde of undead creatures by the time any player has summoned their 8th undead creature. The Necrohamster is a quick to pick up with simple rules, but 15 unique summon creatures and varying award cards allow for depth and replayability. The games of the Necrohamster are fun and quick, and as I said, just take 10 to 15 minutes to play. You can pledge at £14 for a copy of the game with unlocked stretch goals, and double that to £28 for 2 sets. Or £26 gets you a copy of the game, some enamel pins, an A6 print, stickers, and of course those stretch goals. And lastly is Diamond Dig by Mr. B Games. It's for 2 to 4 players, takes 30 to 60 minutes to complete, for ages 13 years and over, and ends on Tuesday, September the 20th. From designers Alan R. Moon and Bobby West comes the next evolution in a push your luck game, Diamond Dig. Players take on the role of miners exploring caves for riches in the press your luck game. Each player will have their own bag of chips to draw from. Each round, the start player will ask who is continuing to dig and explore the caves, and who is out, taking what they have found and going back to camp. Press your luck and draw several chips from your bag, or play it steady and safe. The choice is yours in this light, fast and fun game. Each mining bag has several types of chips, 2 of each, and 4 fool's gold. Draw a match of any chip and you bust, losing everything you've gathered that turn. After, players may dig on the map for even more riches, but run the risk of finding fool's gold yet again. The player with the most spoils at the end of the game wins. Pledge at £33 for a copy of Diamond Dig and any unlocked stretch goals, or £50 gets you the deluxe set and gives you all the necessary bits and bobs to push the player count to 6, but this set will only ever be available as on demand through the Kickstarter. And finally, we're on to events, and Tuesdays is Worthing Board Gamers' first night of the week down at the new Dice Worthing store from 7 PM until 10 PM. Just £3 cover charge. Location of the store is 24 to 26 Portland Road, Worthing, BN11 1QN. Wednesdays has Crawley Gaming Community being hosted at the Comic Shop. 42 High Street, Crawley, RH10 1BW, tending to gather from 6ish onwards until closed, and £3 per evening there. Brighton Board Gaming, also known as Board Games at the Barn, run by the Team Crusted Kraken, have now gone weekly, so they'll be joining your Wednesday night lineup for the foreseeable future. You can find them at the West Dean Barn, Dean Vale, Brighton, BN1 5ED. They'll be running from 7 PM through to 11 PM. It's free for new attendees and £2 from there on in. Thursday sees 3 groups running in the form of Worthing Board Gamers' second night of the week down at the Ardington Hotel, Steen Gardens, Worthing, BN11 3DZ from 7 PM. Lewis Board Game Club at the Trinity Gaming Cafe, Arbinger Place, Lewis, BN7 2QA from 7 PM through to 11 PM. Also, Jake and Chris would like to welcome you to Dyson Drinks, 79 to 81 Church Walk, Burgess Hill, RH15 9BQ for their Thursday evening socials. Entry is just £5 for the evening there. And last but not least is Crawley Gaming Club, always there for you on a Monday. They'll be up and running from 6 PM over at the Tilgate Community Centre, Shackleton Road, Crawley, RH10 5DF, and just £3 per person over there. Well, Brian, I think I'm magicked out. You? Although that Doctor Who set did sound intriguing, maybe we should just wait for that set to come out. Oh, you'd rather the Street Fighter set, oh would you? Oh well, we'll see. Right, time to say goodbye to these lovely people before we hand back to they two. And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, keep safe, Meeples. Keep those dice rolling, the cards shuffling, and we'll be right here for you next week.
Thank you very much for that, Paul. And thank you guys for joining us once again for our topical discussion this week. It was a bit of a somber one.
Yes.
I apologise for that. But it is something that is a problem within our hobby. Just remember, if you are someone like me that is fairly thick-skinned and just doesn't really care what people think about you, just remember that not everyone is like that.
Yeah.
And that people, these people need to find themselves a nice game group. So, as we always say, just be as welcoming as you can be, and this community will eventually thrive. Or it will thrive more, because it's already thriving quite well. But yes, what should we do this week, James? Are we actually going to get some more games in this week, do you think?
Hopefully.
How are you getting on with your 30k?
Yeah.
I'm assuming not very well.
No.
No, okay, fair enough. Well, we've got a 30k tournament coming up.
I know.
In our area. So is that going to be a bit of motivation for you?
That might be a bit of motivation, though. Yeah. I was looking at the proposed dates. It's like, if it is October, that might be a bit of a push.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for a call back from the hall to find out if that is available. So it might well be February. It might be October. So if you're in the south of the UK, and keep an eye on our socials, because we will potentially be having a 30k tournament in this area very, very soon. But anyway, we're going to head off, play some games. Thank you very much for joining us, guys. Till next week, my name has been Jason.
And I'm James.
And you've been listening to the Meeple Minded Podcast. Join us next week for more tabletop gaming goodness. Ta-ta. Goodbye.